Hello, this is Indivisible Insight, your local advocacy news source. I'm Jack. We bring you the latest news as well as information about upcoming local Indivisible affiliated events. We'll begin with our local events. A protest art show is being held August 15th and 16th in downtown Hagerstown, and we need some of your protest art. If you would like to contribute art, please contact Jen at jenjanu@gmail.com. That is JENNJANU at gmail.com. A forum, Truth and Consequences, What the Republican Tax Bill Means for You, is scheduled for August 16th in the combined community room 308 and 309 at Alice, Virginia, and David W. Fletcher branch of the Washington County Library at 4 to 5 p.m. Panelists will include representatives of local social service agencies, healthcare providers, an environmentalist, and an economist. Washington County Indivisible will be moving ahead with plans for a general meeting with an informational focus on Saturday, August 23rd. The focus of the meeting will be the billionaire subsidy / Medicaid cut legislation that Republicans in the Congress just gave to Donald Trump. In the months ahead, expect the Republican spin machine to be working overtime to downplay catastrophic consequences and deflect accountability for the consequences of this legislation. We're going to do our best to counter with solid information about what this legislation means for your community. We've started working on this, but we could use your help. We would like to include people who can talk about the healthcare perspective, the economics perspective, and the social services perspective. If you are interested in participating or know someone who might be willing to participate, please reach out to WashingtonCountyIndivisible@gmail.com. Today, we have a special interview with Eric from Indivisible Insight, as well as the members of the Good Troubadours. Please listen and enjoy.
Speaking today with Steve and Ben of the Good Trouble Troubadours, who have been very actively performing around the Frederick area for months now. And why don't we start telling me a little bit about the origin of this group? How did you put it together? What was the impetus? What is driving you at this point?
I can start off seeing how day one was the day after election day, where I'm sitting at my desk, hanging my head into my hands, going, "Well, what can I do?" And being a musician, I thought, well, maybe I can write some protest songs, get some messages out there,
Mhm.
try to motivate people, hopefully to vote, come out and vote. So I started writing songs just on my own immediately in November and December. Pretty much spent, I actually worked on this project every day since election day, but started putting some protest songs together. And I'm in some other bands. I got friends interested in the project and formed the Good Trouble Troubadours. And Ben, what would you say we finally got the band coalesced where we had all the pieces in place?
Yeah, well, forming band has been together for probably 3 months now in rehearsals for live performances and whatnot. And it really was Steve's brainchild, and I got to hand it to him. And he came to me and said, "Look, I want to put together this band to do these songs. Are you interested?" I said, "You better believe I'm interested." And going back to Steve's point, sort of getting people motivated. Let's make real clear what we're talking about. We are only talking about nonviolent, lawful protest. And there is an awful lot to protest these days. Just the daily news from this administration and the way they are dismantling the government and deporting people wholesale that have nothing whatsoever to do with criminal activity. Just they're gone because of their place of origin, etc. Otherwise, law-abiding persons here in this country. And this big, beautiful bill, with its slashing of Medicaid. I mean, this is a real abandonment of the people who voted for this administration. And so we intend our music to reach as broad of an audience as possible. We are not just here to preach to the converted. We are here to reach everybody we can possibly reach. And to those people who voted for this administration, there's nothing wrong with reconsidering your vote. There's nothing wrong with opening your eyes and realizing that indeed this administration is abandoning you and your interests, and this sad truth. And so when we talk about motivating people, I mean, there's certain things, you speak to politicians on either side of the aisle, and they will tell you, as long as the GOP is in the majority, there's not much the Democrats can do, and I'm not sure I accept that.
Mhm.
But there's certainly things citizens can do. So first and foremost, citizens can vote and come out and vote. Get off your chair, get out of your couch, get out of your home and vote.
Mhm.
And the second thing they can do is make their voices heard. You can make your voices heard in a number of ways. You can, relentlessly call your representative in Congress and your senator. That may get you something. You can write letters and sign petitions. That may get you something. You can get out into the street in lawful demonstration. Please, hear me when I say lawful. I do not mean violent. I do not mean unlawful. I mean lawful, permitted, properly permitted demonstrations. And therein lies the band. So our songs are for that purpose, to get people motivated to do what I've just said. And then, the performing band to be out at those rallies with these songs, further motivating people once they're out of the rally.
Mhm. That's wonderful. Maybe talk about a little bit about the band composition and the process. Steve, are you the main songwriter for the Good Troubadours at this point?
It started out that way. Actually, the very first song was written by a friend of mine who's not in the band.
Mhm.
He's a poet, and I had been helping him put some of his poetry to music
Mhm.
uh, maybe about a year and a half ago. So I was kind of getting tuned up for this project unknowingly by helping him. And he'd actually written a protest poem about Trump, Trump 1.0, which is Break My Silence. So
Mm.
then I put that to music, and that was basically the first song where it started. That he wrote that story, and I started writing, and then Ben joined in, and then also another member of the band is the lyricist also. So we have plenty backlogs of
Of song.
story and lyrics to bring to life.
Mhm.
So and then every day I think one of us comes up with a new idea because we
Mhm.
go through new ideas present themselves on the news
No,
each and every
that's
day.
wonderful. Yeah, it's kind of a mixed blessing. It isn't every day. It's like, oh my God,
Right.
what
They
are we?
want to flood the zone, and we'll flood the zone right back at them.
Are we talking about the alligator Alcatraz today? Are we talking about the Supreme Court decision? Yeah, I know there's a lot to write about. What is the actual composition of the band? What sort of instrumentation are we talking about?
Yeah, sure. So we have Steve on bass,
Mhm.
and we have a terrific drummer. We have two singers, male and female singer. We have a guitar player who is actually a multi-instrumentalist, but in this band, he's sitting on guitar.
Mhm.
And I am something of a multi-instrumentalist as well, to the extent that my performance is, worth a damn. So I'm on keyboards and a guitar and steel guitar in this
Oh,
band.
cool. Great. Love steel guitar.
So do I.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking forward to hearing you guys. And whereabouts are you playing nowadays? Where do you find your venues?
Yeah, we're playing actually all over the place now. So we just did a series of gigs. One was down in Silver Spring at a restaurant,
Mhm.
El Golfo. We will be back there in September and October.
Mhm.
Three more gigs there. We have played the Carroll County's No Kings Rally. We are going back to Carroll County this Sunday
Mhm.
for a rally at 3 o'clock in support of the memory of John Lewis.
Oh, cool.
Uh, Good,
Good
the
trouble.
name,
Yep.
good, you can believe it, the name, apropos of the name.
Yeah.
We will be at Frederick's commemoration of John Lewis's Good Trouble this Thursday evening from 5 to 7.
Hmm.
And we are probably going to be doing a rally in Silver Spring here in Montgomery County sometime in August. That one's still in the works.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then we're getting, requests coming in all the time. So, for a band that's just starting up in the last few months
Yeah.
and just starting to get rehearsals, to the point where we feel like we can indeed go out and play live and turn in a competent performance. It's pretty rapid pretty
Yeah,
rapid growth.
yeah, definitely. You know, and
We've also,
I want to add, and I think you confirmed your acceptance of our invitation to play up here in Hagerstown in September.
indeed, we have.
Okay,
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it. Now, in addition
get
to
that
that,
on the
we've also,
record. Yeah.
yeah. In addition to that, we've also gotten our stuff on the radio. So I had done a CD way in the past for an orphanage in Africa, and I'd used a remote then to get that one on the radio. And I went back to that same promoter in California, and he was delighted to hear from me even 18 years later. And so we have dropped not one but two collections of songs. Our first collection got to the charts and was charting at the 22 slot of the top 30 of college radio stations.
Excellent.
Yeah, we have just dropped the second collection. And in fact, the songs I sent to you at your request were two from the second collection and one from the first collection.
Mhm.
And we're very hopeful that it's going to start making, the second one will get even greater airplay, but we're on the radio.
Excellent.
So
Are you on Spotify?
I believe we are, yes. Steve?
I think the first album, yeah, did get pushed out. I don't know. It takes some weeks
Yeah.
for it to go through the system there. So I haven't checked in a while to see if it's actually up and running, but it's been submitted. So
Maybe I can put a little request in my Spotify account and go do a little search for you, give a little boost there.
okay.
Yeah. Well, that's all. How has the reception been? Are people like, when they recognize like, hey, you know what, this is political. How's the reception been? Are people surprised? Are they receptive? Are they, what's the scoop?
I think we promote these with that we're the soundtrack of the resistance. So I hope, in theory, they're not really surprised when
Not
they hear. They know,
surprised. Right. They know
they
what
know
they're
what they're
getting.
getting. So
Yeah.
then it's been good. It's been big, positive, and
I think that one of the great things with music is it does pull people in. It does pull people, you know, get them in a receptive area, where they start to groove with the music and then kind of are receptive to some of the messages that's coming along. So that's really encouraging. What so how let's talk a little bit about politics. As Indivisible, we're Washington County Indivisible. We have a pretty clear, if and simple agenda, which is essentially pro democracy, radical concept. Um, but how would you describe your political evolution and how that works into to where you are today?
Ben, you want to take that?
I want you to go first and I'll chime in. I
Oh,
mean, it's a question for both of us, so go ahead.
Yeah, it
okay.
is.
Yeah, I'm the child of two federal workers. They're both Democrats, spent their careers in Washington. So I've always been a lefty just because of that, because that's the way the family was. And I can remember the periods when Nixon was in power and my father's in the State Department. He's worried about losing his job because
Yeah.
things were very politicized then also. So kind of lived through that before. So no, I've never wavered from that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ben?
Ben?
Well, so I am actually politically probably a centrist.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I really am. I'm politically not labelable, and I don't want to wear a label.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are many issues. To me, it doesn't make any sense simply to join a group and define yourself by that political group, and it's disturbing to me to see people do that. And I don't do that. I have varying beliefs and varying positions on varying issues.
Mm-hmm.
On social issues, I am probably would be considered pretty liberal. On economic issues, it's a mixed bag. It's actually a mixed bag on social issues as well. But the one thing I do believe without qualification is in the necessity of democracy and all that is democracy. And that means the institutions of democracy. And when I hear, attacks on the press as the enemy of the people, when the press could not be more essential to the survival of a democracy, a free press. And, look, I've had my own run-ins with the press, and I have had to sit back and read things that, I said to them and then read them back or hear them on the news back wrong. I get it. People make mistakes, and the press is comprised of people, and they will make mistakes from time to time. But for God's sake, to wholesale trash the press and the media as the enemy of the people is the first step and a very important step towards authoritarian rule. And regardless of political beliefs, regardless of which side of the aisle you may find yourself on or straddling the aisle, you cannot abandon the notion of a free press as essential to freedom of speech. And that is essential to democracy. And moving from there to the institutions of democracy. I mean, folks, we all benefit from a federal government that functions and functions strongly. And if we hear this continuous mantra of fraud and waste, and that's all we come to believe the federal government is, then how are we doing? How is it that we are doing anything other than those foreign countries who attack our country? It sounds to me like we're attacking our country. And I am not going to attack our country. This is my country. I am the product of a Southern Baptist boy who, joined the Navy when World War II came around and spent the next 25 years in the Naval Reserves after that. And he married the daughter of immigrants to this country. And, after the war, they created the quintessential boomer family. They wanted nothing more than to replenish this country. And so here we all are.
Mhm.
And, when I see what's happening now, and I see the attacks on the country, on the attacks on the things that my father fought for in World War II, and that my mother got, defense jobs. She couldn't go overseas and fight, so she got defense jobs here in this country. And the very institutions, the very beliefs that they fought for are now literally under attack by this administration. I am not willing to sit back and let that simply happen. So my political beliefs have not evolved. My resolve, though, to exercise those political beliefs and to see them survive, that has most definitely evolved in direct relation and proportion to what I see as the threat to those beliefs and those institutions. Fundamentally, the threat to democracy. I am not willing to see democracy die in this country. I know a lot of people who said, "Oh, Trump's elected again, I'm leaving. I can't stand it anymore." I know some people who are making arrangements to do that now, friends and colleagues. And my response is, I am not leaving. I am not giving up. I am not sitting back. I am not acquiescing. I am motivated and I will remain motivated. My response will be commensurate with the level of threat. Yes, it will.
Yeah.
And frankly, that's a lot of what's behind our music as well, is to, again, the mantra that we hear from people of we just feel so overwhelmed and there's nothing we can do. And oh my God, and I'm thinking there is something you can do. This country has been through things like this before, and it only came out of it, and it only survived because people got out and did something. It didn't survive because people sat back and thought, well, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
So
That's
my
very consistent with the approach that we take up here in Washington County. We have 6, 7 initiatives currently going where people's like, now I'm a co-chair of the group and always say, hey, you want to do something? Get some people, do it, do it. Whether you want to put on a podcast, you want to start a letter writing group, we've got a lot of things going. So yeah, our whole approach is very much consistent with that. And also, as I mentioned, the fundamental, we have former Republicans, we got socialists, we got all sorts of people in our group, but the one consistent thing is the one core is belief in democracy. So that
Yeah. Is... And to that point, if I could just make one more comment.
Mhm.
Um, the divisions in this country, I hear again the same term over and over again, the polarization, and this really is not polarization. This is a deliberate, an end to be served by dividing us,
Yeah.
by making, forever creating an us against them attitude in this country, us against them mindset, where there's always somebody who is the enemy. And you read these, or you hear conservative leaders talking about Democrats not just in disagreement with their beliefs and in disagreement with their politics and their views as to how to achieve a certain end, but demonizing
Yeah.
and literally referring to them as devils and demons and minions of Satan and whatnot. And even something less extreme than that, just this never-ending onslaught of ridicule and for lack of a better word, demonization of political opponents. It's incredibly dangerous, and it serves an end. And the end is not the benefit of this country. The end is the benefit of the people who are driving those divisions,
Yeah.
to keep them forever in power. I will not succumb to that. I do not wish harm to folks who voted for Trump and who adopt the MAGA mindset. In a different circumstance, we would be friends. We'd be sharing a cup of coffee and talking about issues. I still want to have that cup of coffee, and I still want to share those issues,
Mhm.
discuss those issues. I want to hear what they believe and what their concerns are. I would be willing to bet you that there is an enormous overlap between what they consider to be important and what I consider to be important, and what their concerns are for their personal lives, for their private lives, for the lives of their friends and their family are, an enormous overlap between those things that I consider to be important as well. If there's a disagreement as to how we achieve the resolution of those issues, okay, let's talk that out. But I will not demonize my political opponents, and I will not acquiesce to being demonized by my political opponents. It's a very dangerous thing to have happen in this country, and one of the things we're trying to achieve in this music
Mhm.
is the antithesis of that, the means by which somebody can counter that move of continued driving people in this country apart.
So the music is, how do you see the music working into that exactly?
Well, so I can tell you with regard to the songs that I've written, what I try to do is, essentially, honestly, keep my personal taste in music out of it.
I see.
And my personal taste in music tends to be pretty esoteric, and I'm not sure too many other people other than me in this room would, and the people who created the music would see it as great music. I try to create music that will appeal to as broad of an audience as possible.
Mhm.
And let's first get them, get people listening just because it's a cool sounding song, just because it's got a great beat and some good guitar playing and some good musicianship and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then after that, create music. Sometimes has a pretty bitter lyric to it, but other times has a more reconciliation lyric to it.
Mhm.
And I mean, one of the lyrics I think says, people, is this really what you voted for? Is this really what you wanted?
Mhm.
I mean, here's what's going to happen with, the cuts to Medicaid, for instance. Is this really what you want? I mean, I'm stopping shy of saying, or do you feel rather abandoned right now? Because you have been abandoned right now.
Yeah.
Right. Well, here I am saying to them, you've been abandoned. Now, bear in mind, I'm not saying I have abandoned you.
Yeah.
I'm saying the folks you voted for have abandoned you. It's okay to realize that the people I voted for have indeed done something different than what they said. Listen, I've had to come to that same conclusion on many occasions during the course of my life, and I haven't shied away from it.
Yeah.
That's democracy, and that's First Amendment, and that's recognizing when in fact the people you have voted for are now doing something entirely different than they said they were going to, and it's entirely contrary to your interest. And even with the veneer, the claim, the continued, drumbeat that President Trump is doing exactly what he said he's going to do. Well, he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do with regard to deporting people, okay, except he's actually going way beyond, since what he said he was going to do is deport people with criminal records, and he's going way beyond that now. But as to the things that probably matter a whole lot more, like Medicaid, Like Social Security, he is absolutely not doing what he said he was going to do, not one little bit. And that is going to come back to haunt everybody in this country. Medicaid isn't just for the poor. Medicaid is for every single person who intends to grow old and at some point need long-term care. That's going to be covered by Medicaid, or it is not if there is no further Medicaid. If there have been cuts to Medicaid such that that care can't be covered anymore, then that's not going to be covered by Medicaid, begging the question as to what's going to take its place. Where are we going to be? And it ain't just going to be, people struggling with their elderly parents now or their grandparents. It's going to be people struggling with their own health. Now, I had to watch my mother die a slow, very painful death after having had a stroke and then after having some other things happen. And it took, several months, and we had to indeed get her onto Medicaid. I look back on that now and I think, Jesus, Medicaid wasn't there. And we just simply had to take her into our house, my house or one of my siblings' houses, and pay, I think it would have been something on the order of $11,000 a month to keep her alive, to essentially marshal her through the end of her life.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for if Medicaid simply disappears. And that is what is happening with that big, beautiful bill. And that is absolutely an abandonment.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Coming down the track. Yeah, that is coming down the track. See,
So-
maybe you talk a little bit about the process of the songwriting process. Where do you start? Where do you start out with this? How does yeah.
Let me just pick up from what Ben just said, because Ben compliments me well because he's the guy that reached across the aisle,
Yeah.
and I am not that guy.
Uh-huh.
I'm the writing songs telling our people to wake the hell up. And if we can get all the blue people to vote, then I think we got something.
Mm.
So Ben's a good compliment. Ben's is good for me to consider other things because I personally feel that the MAGA people are brainwashed and are pretty much unreachable unless it can be deprogrammed. There's nothing much to work with there, and it's very sad. I mean, it's very sad for them. It's hard to imagine to brainwash half of the whole society, but it happened before in Nazi Germany.
And it also, if I can interject, it also didn't happen right away.
Right.
It didn't happen. I'm reading right now. There's a book reading. I think it's called the Big Myth about basically the how Americans were taught to hate government. And this goes back decades, goes back to the 1980s, very concerted effort about idolizing big business and hating government. And so, yeah, this didn't happen overnight. You're right.
So moving on to the songwriting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting subject because there's no really one approach, I guess. There's some similarities with all the songs, but there are also differences. I mean, first it started just from anger and just trying to write down some of the anger and then trying to piece it together so it would make sense as a story. Sometimes you come up with just a central theme. It's just a handful of words. It might only be 2 words, might be 3 words, and then you build off that idea.
You write the lyrics first, and then you put the
correct, and that's the central to what's common about all the songs. Lyrics, the story comes first, and the music comes later. Sometimes Ben and I will collaborate. I'll come up with an idea, and then he'll magically flesh out the story and make it work. Sometimes I'm pretty much 99% there, and I'll run it by Ben just to make sure the message fits. That I'm not breaking any of our goals on what we're trying to message.
Yeah.
And Ben, your approach is?
Yeah, when I write songs on my own, mine are just straight from the latest thing on the news that's got my hair on fire. I think I sent one to you. Did I send to you? It's happening now.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I think I sent to you I guess I sent you Good Trouble and then Steve's
It's happening.
Join the Fight. Yeah, Join the Fight.
Yeah.
All right, but I mean, we've got some others. So it's happening now. Just came straight from Springsteen's rant. I mean, you know, and I'd read a review of his rant uh, in the newspaper where the reviewer made reference to his coming back as a motif, coming back to that phrase. It's happening now.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, let's write a song about this.
Yeah.
And so the lyrics followed that. And you know, when I write my lyrics, I've already got a pretty good sense of what I want it to sound like. You know, when I'm writing those lyrics, I already have a pretty good sense of you know, and so I'm fitting the lyrics into that. And my process is I'll write sort of free form first, you know, and then the rhyming scheme will sort of develop all by itself. I don't have to work at that. What I have to work at is then chopping it down and editing it so it'll fit a meter scheme, right? And it'll fit the rhythm of the sound that I've got that I know I want the song to have. So it's just like that. But I'll tell you, pretty quick process. You know, I'm not, once I read a headline, think, okay, we got to put that one to a song. I can get those lyrics down within 30, 45 minutes. I mean, one that I didn't send you, I wrote about Joni Ernst and her outrageous.
We're all gonna die. Yeah.
That's her outrageous comment to a constituent.
We're all gonna die.
She represents someone who is paying her salary, someone she is duty bound to represent, who expresses a very legitimate concern. You know, the custom Medicaid means people are going to die. And her response wasn't just, well, honey, everyone's going to die. Then she goes on the next day and does that, I mean, just utterly offensive commercial the next or apology the next day from a cemetery where she was simply ridiculing her constituent for raising a concern. And this is what I was going back to before, this demonization. Well, how dare she take someone whose legitimate concern is being expressed at a town hall meeting and ridicule that person now in public. Take it and take it to the stage where she's putting out this video of her in that cemetery, etc. So just outrageous. So that one, that day I wrote a song that's called "We're All Gonna Die," and I did not send that one to you, but it's available. It's on the latest.
I'll look it up. I do want to hear it. We're all gonna die. What a great title for a song. I mean, you're right. What a great idea for it. Jesus.
Yeah, when we finish here, I'll shoot you an MP3 with it.
Yeah, cool. The so I think we are I did include this question under the political analysis heading. So I'm just going to put it out there to both of you. I guess I'm going to go back to start with Steve there. What do you see ahead? What's your hope? What's your fear? I think these are, to put it kindly, uncertain times. What are you looking ahead at, Steve?
Well, the hope is that we can turn it around at the midterms. I'm not, I don't have that much confidence in that, but that's what we're reaching for. What we fear is that Trump's going to outlaw our peaceful protests.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hear you. Ben?
So I'll do it in reverse order. My great fear is the declaration of martial law and the erasure of our rights. That is my true fear. And if somebody wants to hang on to power beyond the point where the Constitution and the laws will no longer permit them to hang on to power, that's one way to do it. Declare martial law. My hope is the following. So go back to what I said before. So I don't share Steve's belief that the folks who identify themselves as MAGA have simply been brainwashed and they're beyond reaching. I do not share that belief. In fact, just the opposite. So long as I can sit down with somebody and have a discussion, have a conversation, and feel a genuine bond, feel a genuine, meeting of the minds on multiple levels, then I'm not willing to give up. And I'm not willing to simply write someone off because they identify MAGA. And I know lots of people who indeed identify MAGA, and nonetheless, I can do that. I can sit down and have a conversation with them and come away from that conversation thinking, I really like that person. And I'm pretty sure they're sitting there thinking, I really like Ben too. All right. So long as there is that, there is a foundation for somehow seeking unity in this country. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I've got the answer, and got the overarching answer that's going to bring us all back together and keep, keep civil war from happening or keep martial law from being imposed on us, et cetera. But I do believe the older I get, the more I believe that you don't seek the big answer. You seek little baby steps in trying to get to the big answer. Okay, well, that little baby step, that first baby step is that conversation. That conversation about, what a great day they had yesterday or what a terrible day they had yesterday. And what their hopes and dreams are for their family. I hate to be cliched like that, but what their hopes and dreams are for themselves and their family. The same here.
Yeah.
And it's shared interest, for God's sake, and hence the music.
Yep.
And so that is my great hope, that so long as I can have those conversations with people with diametrically opposed political beliefs from me, then there still is hope.
Yeah. It's funny, you remind me of had a conversation with Tom, I don't know, a few months ago, and Tom has talked about the people he reaches, as within the musician community who are of certain beliefs and has been able to have conversations. So yeah, it's a challenge. There's no doubt about that. I think so the last song that we are going out on, I know there was a little bit of back and forth about what you were going to we're going to play the entirety of this song. What did we decide on? Good Trouble?
Good Trouble, yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the song. Steve, you want to start? Who wrote this?
Actually, Ben wrote that. He'd be best to.
Okay. Ben, do you want to tell us about it a little bit?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. So I wrote the song Good Trouble because primarily the band was named the Good Trouble Troubadours, and I thought, okay, we need a theme song, right?
Okay.
But that was just a starting point. That was just to get me going on the title of the song. I wrote the song as I did, and if you listen closely to the lyrics, you'll hear me say, let's give homage to these civil rights leaders from a day gone by. From Medgar Evers to Emmett Till and Emmett Till's mother, who insisted on having an open casket funeral and invited photographers from Life magazine and Time magazine to say, look at what they have done to my son. To Martin Luther King and to John Lewis. And it's in response to so many of my friends and colleagues who say, I just feel so overwhelmed. I just feel so, hopeless. There's nothing I can do. So I'm just going to ignore it all and hope for the best. And I look back, on those leaders from, who were at the forefront of the civil rights movement when I was coming of age. And these are people who had a whole lot more reason to give up than we do. They had decades of oppression. Their lives were being threatened on a daily basis. Medgar Evers' home was blown up, for God's sake. Martin Luther King was assassinated. Emmett Till's mom had her 14-year-old son, taken from her in the most hideous fashion. And they did not give up. They did not leave this country. They could have. They had every right in the world to, and they had every opportunity to. They could have gotten on an airplane and gone somewhere else, driven up to Canada and be there, and led perfectly comfortable lives somewhere else. But they chose not to do that. They stayed and they fought and they made a difference. And my thoughts are, folks, we have the luxury of not having our lives at risk just by virtue of our expression of our political beliefs. Now, it may get to that. Don't get me wrong. I am not some Pollyanna with rose-colored glasses on. It may very well get to that. When I talk about martial law, that's exactly what I am talking about. But okay, now's the time to try and prevent that from happening, not after it's already happened. And so to all of my friends and all of my colleagues who are sitting there thinking, there's just nothing we can do, and it's just overwhelming and it's all too powerful. And all I want to do is hide from it all and go in my house and, pretend it's not happening. My response is, That's nice. Get out there and do something anyway. And here's the inspiration: Medgar Evers, John Lewis, Martin Luther King, Emmett Till, Emmett Till's mother. These are people who deserve to be our inspiration. They gave their lives not just for the immediacy of the issues that were facing them then, but for all ages, for all of us now, on the assumption, on the reality that fighting for freedom is never a one and done thing. Not ever, not under any circumstance. It never has been and is never going to be. It is never something to be taken for granted. And when I hear people say there's nothing I can do, all I'm thinking to myself is, okay, well, then you're just taking it for granted. You took it for granted before, and now that you see it slipping away, you're taking that for granted. I'm not willing to do either one. And I want to motivate you out there to do the same thing, and to stop taking it for granted. Stop taking either of those things for granted. Stop taking your freedom and democracy for granted. Stop taking the death of your freedom and democracy for granted. Get out there and do something. There's always something we can do. We can't until we start, so start. Thank you. And that was my motivation for writing this song.
Yeah, well put. Well put. And I look forward to we're gonna share it at the end of this podcast, and I think we'll have quite a few motivated listeners. And this is you really your motivation fits very, as I said, fits very well with what we're doing up here. Is we are making good trouble in all sorts of ways. So I'm sorry that we're not going to be able to make your gig down in Frederick. As it happens, we've got an event happening here in Hagerstown. We're working with the NAACP on this coming Thursday. And a lot of what we do is putting together coalitions, working with other groups, making connections between different groups, immigrant groups, minority groups, unions, and trying to make good trouble together. So I appreciate your time, both of you, Steve and Ben. Key members, songwriters for Good Trouble. Look for them at a venue near you coming soon. And Good Trouble Troubadours will be performing up in Hagerstown in the City Park in September as part of a multicultural, multi-artistic experience in the park at the band shell in September. So put it on your calendar, and we will be seeing you then. Thanks again, guys, for all your time, and I'll hope to see you in person real soon.
Eric, it's been a pleasure, and thank you so much for having us.
Okay.
We look forward to performing.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks to Eric and the Good Troubadours for their time. One last note before we close out today. As you may be aware, Hagerstown will soon be enacting an anti-rough sleeping ordinance that criminalizes sleeping outside, punishable by a $500 fine and up to 60 days in jail. I personally attended a recent city council meeting to ask about this, and unfortunately, it seems that this measure will be put into effect without offering further resources for folks with nowhere to go to sleep. That being the case, I would like to highlight Reach of Washington County, a local nonprofit that is a cold weather shelter for our unhoused neighbors. I recently toured the facility myself, and they are looking for volunteers. Given this new ordinance, help will be appreciated. You can find Reach online at reachofwc.org. I will also note that the City Council asked for more community engagement, so this is your cue to reach out to the office of your council member or the mayor, as well as to show up to the council meetings held the fourth Tuesday of every month in City Hall. That concludes this episode of Indivisible Insight. Special thanks to the Good Trouble Troubadours for the intro track, It's Happening Now, and outro track, Good Trouble. Thank you all for listening, and remember, democracy is not a spectator sport. Take care.
Democracy has stumbled into the right wing's bubble. Truth and principle are humbled. Now is the time for good trouble. Silence is the coward, our resistance is redoubled. With the right wing so empowered, now is the time for good trouble. Blessed are those from a time gone by who refuse to be silent, who were willing to die for the cause of freedom, never fully realized, and the lasting inspiration of their good troubled lives. They are not forgotten, their inspiration survives the violence of their murders and their good troubled lives. Remember Medgar Evers, recall Emmett Till and Martin Luther King. They all refused to sit still. Here's to John Lewis, to his vision realized, and the inspiration of all their good troubled lives. When Trump is finished, democracy will be in rubble. Before our freedom is vanquished, now is the time for good trouble. Their spirits call us to action. Their inspiration persists. We have overcome all distraction, and we are ready to resist. Democracy needs us to burst the right-wing bubble. Now is the time for good trouble. Inspiration of their good troubled lives.